A simple plan for going into a networking event could be, I'm going to meet 3 new people.
That's such good advice for so many reasons. Once I do this, I can leave. And as an introvert, that's what I'm always thinking. When can I leave?
I'm Jen, a career coach and your go-to gal for all things career advice.
And I'm Gina, and hopefully we're going to help some people get their next job.
Welcome to Job Search Stories. Today, we have a special guest with us. She's joining us to react to some of the most common networking mistakes.
Get ready because there are definitely some mistakes and we don't want you to ever do them. So listen up.
Welcome, Holly.
Ooh, it's Holly. It's Holly.
Hey, guys.
Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
You're back.
And for such a great topic. I love talking about networking.
Let's dive in then.
Oh, yes.
We want to talk about some networking hacks. I see videos all the time and people are talking about how there are some websites where you can take employers' emails off of social media. What are your thoughts about getting a recruiter's email or like an employer's email by being sneaky about it?
A lot of them have those emails available anyway.
Very true.
So I think that's okay, especially if it's their professional email, if it's their business email.
If it's the personal email, do you feel like that's a little too intrusive?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, if you find their professional email and you reach out, that's showing that proactivity that you're really interested in this position, and it makes the recruiter's job a little bit easier as well. So I think that's a great idea. But personal email, because again, if you go on the other side of it, what if that happened to you?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Getting into stalking vibes. A little
stalkerish.
Is this hack good? Would you recommend?
I think that is a great tip. However, you want to reach out maybe once, maybe twice. If they don't respond, don't keep emailing them. You're getting into stalking there. And that's not a good idea. So yes, great tip, but keep it at 1 to 2 emails.
Yeah, makes sense. Speaking of reaching out to recruiters, I kind of want to dive into some of the most common networking mistakes that either of you have seen. I know I've seen a couple. What are some common networking mistakes that you've seen as a career coach?
So a common networking mistake is when someone will just blatantly ask, hey, can I have this job?
They came in hot.
Yeah.
And it's just like, number one, what job? Like a lot of recruiters they have multiple jobs they're trying to fill. It's like, who are you?
Yeah.
So
I think for me, one of the biggest mistakes in networking that I've seen job seekers make is actually not really understanding the importance of networking and how valuable it can be within their job search. It is so valuable. And when a job seeker doesn't necessarily know that, they might be more hesitant to do it. So just not networking it at all.
Yeah. So it's like one, networking the wrong way or just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what are some ways that someone who's looking for a job can avoid these common networking mistakes?
a good way to avoid these common mistakes is to think about networking as connections. You are making connections with people. And it's not even necessarily to get a job from that particular person. You are making connections that can make further connections. And the more connections you make, the more opportunities that open up. If you're just trying to get things from people, that's not what networking is about. It's not what can I get? What can I get? It's really about creating connections.
Yeah. And those connections, I mean, we're essentially saying relationships, right?
Right.
And relationships have to be nurtured. So a way to avoid just the mistake of not networking correctly, maintain the relationships, reach out occasionally. Because even if somebody is in your network, if you haven't talked to them in 3, 5, 10 years and you get a message out of the blue, first you might be trying to remind yourself, okay, like I know this person, but what do I really remember about them?
Yeah,
right.
And that's an important point for people who are looking for their first job. Connection with networking, fostering that relationship is just as important as any other relationship in your life.
Absolutely. Oh,
ooh,
double absolutely.
Snaps.
The coaches agree.
Twinning.
And yeah, if you're trying to reconnect with somebody in your network, of course, you could just send a quick message. If you have their phone number, send them a text. If you're just connected through a social networking site, you can send them a message. Something a little bit more than just like, hey, how's it going? If they have posted something recently, maybe they were promoted, maybe they just started a new job. Reaching out to something that they've posted about or news that you've seen is really great. So you can say in your message, hey, I just saw you started at a new company. Would love to hear how that's going. Just be really interested in to see how you've grown in your career since we last chatted. Something that shows that you're still engaged, right? You're still very much invested in them, and then they can be just as invested in you.
that's great advice.
All right, Holly, now time for one of Gina's favorite parts parts of the podcast when we answer a question from a viewer.
Ooh.
So this viewer question comes from Hannah. Hannah asks, I'm the most introverted person and I feel uncomfortable getting out there to network and I don't even know where to start. Do you two or three have any tips on networking for introverts?
I do, because I consider myself an introvert as well.
You're like,
I mean,
am.
I am an introvert. Like, it's difficult for me to even to be here and to do this. Like, it's draining. And going to those networking events, it gives me so much anxiety, and I get sweaty and the butterflies. One of the things that's been the best thing for me is to have a friend go with me, because then I have that accountability of, okay, well, I'm not going to back out of this. I got someone coming with me.
Yeah.
And so that helps. And then I'm not just standing in a corner, by myself or only talking to one person. She'll help me get there. She'll start conversations. She'll go off on her own. And then it kind of gives me the courage to start having some conversations too. And then people will come up to me. So that really helps just literally get my foot in the door.
My friend literally has an organization where a bring someone networking event. So it's like, one, you have a buddy, but two, you're helping somebody else out. That's literally the best way to do it if you're an introvert.
And safety in numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel much more safe when you've got somebody with you. And I think going into a networking event with a plan, and the plan not being get a job, right? So a simple plan for going into a networking event could be, I'm going to meet 3 new people.
Yeah.
Just have a conversation with them. Just try to expand my network just a little bit. And in preparation for that, really taking that time to nail down that elevator pitch, being able to confidently introduce who you are and just be prepared to ask a few open-ended questions so that you don't get in a position where you're like, okay, I introduced myself, but now I don't know what to say. Because as somebody who has a bit of anxiety myself, I kind of need to know what the next steps are. So plan those next steps for yourself.
And you have that set number. It's like, all right, once I do this, I can leave.
Yeah.
So, and as an introvert, that's what I'm always thinking. When can I leave?
Yeah.
So
it's like, when can I go home?
You go, and you're like, where are the exits?
Yeah.
Okay, right. And so you have that goal. You meet that goal. You get to practice and really refine that elevator pitch. You might mess it up the first time, and that's okay. Because chances are the first person that you meet there is not going to be a deal breaker for you.
And you bring up a good point about these different ways to network or how networking events really change. A networking event could be any event. You could be at a meetup for something you are really interested in. Introverts have hobbies too, right? You like to surround yourself with like-minded people, and those people can have all different kinds of backgrounds. So just connecting over things that are really important or special to you, that's a great way to network, not even trying to network.
Do either of you have advice for good questions that someone who is introverted could ask at a networking event so that they feel like they get something out of it?
So some really great questions. Just what brings you to this event? Sure. What do you do at your company? What type of company is it? What are you looking to gain from this event? Are you looking to meet people? Are you looking to learn something new? Because that can spark a similar interest from you. And then asking those open-ended questions. So if they start talking about something, you could just ask, oh, tell me a little bit more about that. Or why do you say that? And I think really importantly, as an introvert, what I like to do is to prepare an exit. In addition to keeping conversations going, also need to know when to back out. Really just getting comfortable saying, it was really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for chatting with me. Enjoy the rest of the event.
Yeah.
And then just turn and disappear into the night.
And you know what's great about networking events? Extroverts are there. So sometimes when you're talking as an introvert, there will be somebody else who can carry the conversation. I will say that.
Yeah.
Someone else will be chatting away.
And that's been my experience at most networking events. You'll ask what brings you to this event? And I've gotten a multitude of answers. Some people who were actually working the event and even having a conversation with them, which was cool.
Yeah.
And people generally like to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
They
love it.
Right? So you open up that door and then they just keep going and then be curious. And then hopefully, if they're a decent person, they'll respond and ask you questions.
Yeah. Let them do the work.
Yeah.
For sure. What should and shouldn't you share at networking events?
So some things you can talk about at a networking event are your hobbies, your interests. Generally, you want to stay on topic, why are you there? What is the purpose of this networking event? So kind of the things that you have talked about in your advice before, keeping it fairly relevant to why you are all there.
Yeah, completely agree. And thinking about what do you want from this contact? If this is a professional environment and you're meeting people because you are hoping that down the road this is going to lead to job opportunity, you're going to want to stick to conversations that will show off your skills and experience. Things where you can really talk about your value, because that's pieces of information that they can remember down the road. So if you've only got a short amount of time with somebody, really thinking about what's relevant and what's important and what would I want a potential recruiter or employer to know, even if, I'm not selling myself in an interview, I still want to drop little gold nuggets to say, hey, I'm a really great catch.
But you also want to make sure that you're memorable as well. And so staying like solely on work can be difficult. It's kind of hard to open up that conversation right away. And so sometimes a good way to get the conversation going could be like even talking about tattoos.
Yeah, for sure.
That opens up the door. It's like, oh, who's your artist? And that gets the conversation started, which then you can go into, okay, cool. So have you been to this event before? What do you do for work? So if you're feeling kind of like, I don't know how to start this conversation, but you notice something about them. My last networking event, I saw someone playing Jenga. And so I started playing Jenga with this person. And then it was just like, I noticed that they were going from the bottom of one of those. I was like, why did you do that? Why did you make that decision? And then the conversation just somehow went from there.
Yeah. You leave the networking event. What's the best way to follow up after that?
Well, I guess we should go backwards because at the networking event, you have to find a way to connect with that person. So you'll want to get their contact information, so their professional email or even a phone number, depending on how well that you connected. And so that way you have a way to reach out. So when you do reach out, you want to remind the person who you are, where you met, some of the things that you discussed, just saying it was a pleasure meeting you. You might even have some follow-up to say, let's get together again and chat further. I would love to hear more about what you do.
I think that call to action at the end is so important because you don't want that relationship to just die, right, and fizzle out. You want to make sure that you're creating that next open door. So setting up time. Hey, are you available for coffee next week? Or I'd really love to continue the conversation. Let me know when you've got about 20 minutes to spare. I can follow up with you in a month if that would be better. And just making sure that you're following up in a timely manner, because if they're meeting multiple people at a networking event, after a while, everybody kind of blurs together, right? And so it is really helpful to put that reminder, but also following up, I'd say within a couple of days. I mean, if it's the next day, fantastic. But
keep it fresh.
The longer it takes you to follow up, the harder it's going to be for them to remember who you are.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Holly. We love when you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a blast. You guys are the best.
You're the best.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah. And if you like this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment down below if you want us to answer any of your questions, and tell us how much you love Holly. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Do you come here often?
Okay,
I'm kidding. So you would...
Yeah.
I had one and then I lost it. You like that?